Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the warship Defiant Thunder and watched the alien vessel appear on his screens. His heart beat faster, but his face stayed calm. This was the moment humanity had dreamed about for hundreds of years. First contact with alien life. The alien ship was beautiful. It glowed with soft blue light and moved through space like a fish through water. It was 3 times bigger than the Defiant Thunder, but it looked peaceful. No visible weapons, no armor plating, just smooth curves and that strange blue glow. "Captain, they're sending a signal," said Commander Yuna from her station. She was Minho's second in command and had been with him for 5 years. "It's not in any language we know, but our computers are working on it." Minho nodded. "Keep all weapons offline but ready. I want them to see we come in peace, but I want us ready for anything." The Defiant Thunder was Earth's newest warship. It had been built in the shipyards that orbited the moon. Every system on the ship was designed for one thing: to survive combat. Humanity had spent centuries fighting itself, and those centuries had taught them how to build ships that could take punishment and give it back twice as hard. "Translation coming through," said Lieutenant Tsuji from the science station. She was young but brilliant, the best computer expert in the fleet. "They're calling themselves the Eternal Horizon. They represent something called the Galactic Council." The main screen flickered and suddenly Minho was looking at an alien face. It had 4 eyes, no nose that he could see, and skin that changed colors like oil on water. But the expression seemed friendly. "Greetings," the alien said through the translation system. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. "I am Commander Velthus of the Galactic Council. We have detected your transmissions from the Sol system. We come to welcome you to the galactic community." Minho stepped forward. "I am Captain Minho of the Earth United Fleet. On behalf of humanity, we thank you for your greeting. We hope this is the beginning of a long friendship." For the next hour they talked. Velthus explained that the Galactic Council had existed for 12,000 years, 73 different species all working together, keeping peace across the galaxy. It sounded like paradise. Then Velthus said something that made Minho's stomach tighten. "As per our standard protocol, we must perform a technology scan of your vessel. This is required for all new species. It will only take 3 of your minutes and causes no harm to your ship." Minho looked at Tsuji. She was already checking the alien ship's scanning systems. Her face went tight and she shook her head slightly. "Commander Velthus," Minho said carefully, "could you explain exactly what this scan involves?" "It is simple," Velthus replied, his tone friendly and patient, like a teacher talking to a child. "Our scanners will examine your ship's technology level, your weapons capabilities, your power systems. This helps us determine how best to integrate you into the galactic community." Lieutenant Hyun spoke up from the weapons station. He was a quiet man, but when he spoke, people listened. "Captain, their scan would penetrate deep into our systems. They'd see everything. Every weapon, every computer system, every piece of code we have." Tsuji added, "Sir, it's like giving them the keys to our entire ship. They'd know exactly how to shut us down if they wanted to." Minho felt his jaw tighten. Humanity had learned hard lessons about trust. You didn't survive centuries of war by giving away your secrets to strangers, no matter how friendly they seemed. "Commander Velthus," Minho said, keeping his voice polite but firm, "we appreciate the offer, but we must decline. We are happy to share technical information through normal diplomatic channels. However, we cannot allow an invasive scan of a military vessel." The alien commander's colors shifted to something that looked like confusion. "Captain Minho, I do not think you understand. This is not optional. This is standard procedure. Every species submits to this scan. It is how we maintain order and safety in the galaxy." "Then I think we have a problem," Minho said quietly, "because we are not every species. This is a warship of Earth's United Fleet. You may scan with our permission, under our supervision, or you may not scan at all." Velthus's colors shifted again, this time to something that looked like irritation. "Captain, you are being unreasonable. We have done this thousands of times. You are a new species. You do not understand how things work." "We understand perfectly," Minho replied, his voice getting colder. "You want to inspect our military capabilities without our consent." The answer is no. There was silence for a long moment. Then Velthus's image vanished from the screen. "Captain," Yuna said urgently, "they're powering up their scanning array." "They're doing it anyway?" Minho couldn't believe it. "After we said no?" "Yes, sir," Tsuji confirmed. "The scan will hit us in 10 seconds. Minho made his decision in an instant. Suji, activate all defensive countermeasures. Hyun, weapons to standby but do not fire. Yuna, record everything. I want proof of what they're doing. Countermeasures active, Suji said. Her fingers flew across her console. Sir, their scanning technology is very basic. Our firewalls should stop it easily. The scan hit the defiant thunder like a wave hitting a cliff. Every defensive system on the ship came alive at once. Alarms blared. Lights flashed. But the ship's systems did what they were designed to do. They blocked the invasion, but they didn't just block it. Human computer systems had been built to fight back against cyber attacks. When something tried to break in, they traced it back to its source and counterattacked. It was automatic. It was instant. And it was devastating. Oh no, Suji whispered, staring at her screens. Captain, our countermeasures are following the scan back to their ship. I'm trying to stop it, but the system is doing what it's programmed to do. What's it doing? Minho demanded. It's breaking into their systems, Suji said, her voice full of shock. Sir, their computer security is almost non-existent. It's like they've never even thought about someone trying to hack them. Our systems are just walking right through their defenses. On the alien ship, Minho could imagine the chaos. Red lights flashing, alarms screaming. Computer systems failing as human counter-intrusion programs tore through their networks like a hurricane. Captain, Suji said slowly, I'm reading their entire ship's specifications. Weapons, engines, life support, everything. And sir, there's more. They have a connection to something bigger. A network. I think it's their whole galactic database. Minho closed his eyes for a moment. This was bad. This was very bad, sir, Lieutenant Hyun said, his voice quiet. I've analyzed their weapons. Captain, they're weak, very weak. Our point defense could handle them easily. Their shields are barely military grade. Sir, we could destroy their ship without breaking a sweat. The implications hit Minho like a physical blow. The Galactic Council, 12,000 years old with 73 species and thousands of ships, had technology that was inferior to humanity's. Much inferior. Sever the connection, Minho ordered. Now, done, sir, Suji replied. But Captain, we got a lot of data. Years worth. Maybe centuries worth. Minho sat down in his command chair heavily. They had come out here hoping to make friends. Instead, in less than 5 minutes, they had accidentally hacked an alien ship and discovered that humanity might be the most dangerous military power the galaxy had ever seen. Get me Earth Command, Minho said quietly. They need to know what just happened. Yes, sir, Yuna replied. She paused. Captain, what did just happen? Minho looked at the alien ship on his screen. It was no longer glowing blue. It looked dark and dead in space, I think, Minho said slowly. We just scared the most powerful government in the galaxy, and I think they're about to realize they're not the most powerful anymore. Commander Veltha stood in the ruined bridge of the Eternal Horizon and tried to understand what had just happened. Smoke filled the air. Half his crew was working frantically to restore basic systems. The other half sat in shock, staring at blank screens. Report, Veltas croaked. His voice synthesizer had been damaged in the cascade failure. Junior technician Raxvin looked up from his station. The young officer's face showed pure terror. Commander, the humans, their countermeasures were like nothing in our database. They didn't just block our scan. They attacked back. They got into everything. Our weapon systems, our navigation, our communications. Even our personal files. How long were they in our system? Veltas asked. 3 minutes and 42 seconds, sir. Raxavin's hand shook as he pulled up the logs. In that time, they copied our entire technical database. They accessed the Council network through our connection. They saw everything, Commander. 12,000 years of Council history, technology, and records. All of it. Veltas felt his colors drain to pale gray, the color of fear among his people. This was impossible. The Council had met thousands of new species. They had never encountered anything like this. What about our scan? He asked quietly. Did we get any data on them? Fragments only, sir. Before they severed the connection, our computers managed a partial analysis. Raxavin brought up the data on the main screen. What Velta saw made him wish he hadn't asked. The human ship was a weapon. Not a ship with weapons, but a weapon that could fly. Every system was designed for combat. The armor was layered and redundant. The weapons were precise and deadly. The power output was 3 times what Council ships could generate. And most terrifying of all, every single system had multiple backups and safeguards against intrusion or failure. They build their ships expecting to be attacked, Velthas whispered. They build them expecting damage. They build them expecting to fight and keep fighting. Sir, Raxvin said hesitantly, the analysis suggests that a single human warship could defeat 5 of our ships. Maybe more. Velthas made his decision. Send an emergency quantum message to the Council. Mark it highest priority. Tell them we have encountered a species unlike any other. Tell them humanity is dangerous. On the Defiant Thunder, the mood was equally tense, but for different reasons. Captain Minho had assembled his senior staff in the briefing room. Lieutenant Suji was presenting what they had learned from the brief connection to the alien network. The Galactic Council is old, Suji began. Really old. They achieved faster-than-light travel 10,000 years ago. But here's the strange part. They basically stopped advancing after that. Their technology from 10,000 years ago is almost the same as their technology now. Why would they stop innovating? Asked Commander Yuna. Because they had no reason not to, Lieutenant Hyun replied. He had been studying the military data. They have no enemies, no competition, no conflicts. They reached the top of the food chain and just stayed there. Minho leaned forward. What about their military capabilities? Hyun's expression was grim. Captain, they don't have a military. Not like we understand it. They have security forces. They have patrol ships, but they don't have warships. They've had peace for so long, they've forgotten how to build ships for war. We haven't, Yuna said quietly. Everyone in the room knew what she meant. Humanity had been fighting itself for its entire history. Wars between nations, wars between planets, wars between corporations. Humans knew war like fish knew water. There's more, Suji said. She pulled up another file. The Council has protocols for dealing with dangerous species. They've encountered 3 before. Species that had technology or attitudes the Council considered threatening. What happened to them? Minho asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. 1 was destroyed. 1 was reduced to primitive conditions. 1 was locked in their home system for 3,000 years. Suji's voice was bitter. The Council doesn't conquer. They don't invade. They just isolate you until you agree to follow their rules. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant for humanity. They're going to be afraid of us, Minho said. And fear makes people do stupid things. Sir, said Lieutenant Jinwoo, the youngest officer present. What do we do? Minho stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars burned in the darkness. Somewhere out there was Earth, home, and somewhere else was the Galactic Council deciding right now what to do about humanity. We make sure they understand one thing, Minho said. We're not their enemy. But we will not be contained. We will not be controlled. And we will not surrender our freedom no matter how politely they ask. 3 days later, the emergency session of the Galactic Council began. Representatives from all 73 member species gathered in the Grand Chamber. High Counselor Thexara, oldest and wisest of the council leaders, called the session to order. Commander Velthas stood before them and told his story. He showed them the recordings of the incident. He showed them the analysis of human technology. And he showed them the truth that terrified him. Humanity was more advanced in warfare than the entire council combined. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some species demanded immediate action. Others called for diplomacy. A few suggested that Velthas must be mistaken, that no new species could be so dangerous. They are not just dangerous, Velthas said, his voice cutting through the noise. They are different. Every species the Council has met developed technology and peace, reaching for the stars to explore and learn. Humans developed their technology in war, reaching for the stars to escape and survive. They think differently than we do. Representative Core of the Dravix species slammed his appendage on his desk. The Dravix were the Council's warriors, the ones who handled security and enforcement. Then we must contain them. Lock them in their system before they spread. With what ships? Velthas asked quietly. Representative Core, I have seen their capabilities. A human warship could destroy 10 of ours, maybe 20. How many ships would we lose trying to blockade their system? As many as necessary. Core roared. And what happens, asked Ambassador Neva of the intellectual Korthan species, when they break through? What happens when we make them our enemies? High Counselor Thexara raised a hand for silence. The ancient being had lived for 600 years and had never seen the council so divided. We must know more, she said. Belthus, you said they were not hostile. They only defended themselves when you attempted to scan them without permission. Is this correct? Yes, High Counselor. Belthus admitted, shame coloring his features. I assumed they would submit as all new species do. I was wrong. Then we will attempt diplomacy, Thexara decided. We will send a delegation to speak with them. But we will also prepare. Move the defense fleets to positions around human space, not to attack but to contain if necessary. High Counselor, Belthus said carefully, there is one more thing you should know. Before the connection was severed, the humans accessed our network. They have seen our entire database. They know our history. They know our capabilities. They know everything. The chamber fell silent. For 12,000 years, the Council had maintained its power through knowledge and numbers. Now a new species had that knowledge, and they had the power to challenge the Council's numbers. Then, Thexara said slowly, they know about the Krell, and the Vortan, and the Zal. Yes, High Counselor, Belthus confirmed. Thexara closed her eyes. The Krell, destroyed for developing dangerous artificial intelligence. The Vortan, reduced to primitives for genetic experimentation. The Zal, imprisoned for 3,000 years for being too warlike. The Council's darkest secrets now in human hands. This changes everything, Thexara said. If the humans share that information, if they tell the other species what we have done, the Council could fracture. We must act quickly. Back on the Defiant Thunder, Captain Minho received a message from Earth Command. He was to remain in position and prepare for negotiations. A diplomatic team was being sent from Earth, but he was also ordered to prepare for the worst. They're moving ships into position around our space, he unreported. Long-range sensors show Council vessels forming a perimeter. 300 ships so far, maybe more coming. A blockade, Yuna said grimly. They're going to try to contain us. Minho looked at his crew. They were afraid, but they were also determined. They were human. They didn't give up easily. Send a message, Minho ordered. Broadcast it on all Council frequencies. Make sure every species hears it, Suji nodded. Ready, sir? Minho took a breath and began to speak. His words would echo across the galaxy and change everything. To the Galactic Council. Humanity greets you in peace. We seek friendship and cooperation. But understand this. We will not be scanned without permission. We will not be controlled. We will not be contained. We offer you a choice. Work with us as equals or leave us alone. But if you try to cage us, you will learn why humans survived 10,000 years of war with themselves. The choice is yours, the message ended. Minho sat down heavily. Do you think they'll listen? Jinwoo asked. I don't know, Minho admitted. But at least now they know where we stand. The neutral station hung in space like a silver wheel, spinning slowly at the edge of Council territory. It had been built specifically for these negotiations, assembled in just 2 weeks by both human and Council construction teams. Captain Minho walked through its corridors, flanked by Commander Yuna and 2 security officers. This place is beautiful, Yuna murmured, looking at the crystalline walls that seemed to glow with their own light. They built this in 2 weeks? They have very good construction technology, Minho replied. Just not very good military technology. They reached the main conference room and the doors opened with a soft whisper. Inside, the Galactic Council delegation waited. High Counselor Thexara sat at the head of the table, her ancient form wrapped in flowing robes. Around her were representatives from a dozen species, each one watching the humans with expressions that ranged from curiosity to fear. Captain Minho, Thexara said, her voice translated into English by hidden speakers. Welcome. Please, sit. We have much to discuss. Minho took his seat across from her. Ambassador Taeyang, Earth's senior diplomat, sat beside him. Taeyang was an old man, gray-haired and calm, with eyes that missed nothing. The first week of negotiations was careful and polite. They discussed territory boundaries, trade agreements, cultural exchanges. It was all very civilized and very tense. Both sides were dancing around the real questions, the important ones. On the 8th day, Thexara finally brought up what everyone was thinking. Captain Minho, Ambassador Taeyang, we must address the central issue. Your military capabilities concern us. The Council has maintained peace for 12,000 years through cooperation and mutual trust. Your ships, your weapons, your defensive systems suggest a very different philosophy. Taeyang leaned forward. High Counselor, humanity's history has been violent. We will not lie about that. But that violence taught us hard lessons. We learned to defend ourselves because we had to. We learned to build strong ships because weak ones got destroyed. We learned to protect our systems because unprotected systems got hacked. Exactly our concern, said Representative Core. The Dravix warrior looked aggressive even when sitting still. You are a warrior species. How can we trust you will not use your power against us? How can we trust you won't try to contain us like you did the Zal? Minho asked quietly. The room went completely silent. The council representatives looked at each other with something like panic in their eyes. You know about the Zal, Thexura said. It wasn't a question. We know about all of them, Taeyang replied. The Krell, the Vortan, the Zal, and dozens of others. We accessed your database, remember? We've spent the last 3 weeks reading your history. All of it. That night, Ambassador Taeyang and Lieutenant Suji sat in the human quarters going through files. Suji had been analyzing the council database non-stop since the negotiations began. What she found got worse every day. Ambassador, you need to see this, Suji said, her face pale. She pulled up a file marked with the highest security classification. Taeyang read it slowly. His expression grew darker with each paragraph. Dear God, he whispered. Suji, get Captain Minho, get everyone. They need to see this now. 20 minutes later, the entire human delegation crowded into the conference room. Suji displayed the files on the main screen. The 3 species we knew about weren't the only ones, she began. They were just the only ones that made it to space. The Council has been interfering with developing species for thousands of years. She pulled up case file after case file. Species that showed aggressive tendencies received Council advisors who guided their development toward pacifism. Species that developed dangerous technologies found their research facilities mysteriously failing. Species that resisted Council guidance faced economic blockades until they complied. They don't just maintain peace, Commander Yuna said, her voice shaking with anger. They enforce conformity. Every species in the Council is peaceful because they eliminated or suppressed any species that wasn't. Look at this, Suji said, pulling up another file. The Zal. 3,000 years ago, they developed faster than light travel. They were having wars among themselves, but they were also making incredible technological advances. The Council decided they were too dangerous, not because they attacked anyone, just because they fought each other. So the Council locked them in their home system for 3,000 years. Captain Minho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see Council ships patrolling the area. Hundreds of them. All of them watching the human delegation. They're going to try to do the same thing to us, he said quietly. That's what this is about. These negotiations aren't about peace. They're about getting us to submit. And if we don't submit, they'll try to contain us, can they? Asked Lieutenant Jinwoo. Sir, we have better ships, better weapons, better technology. Can they actually contain us? Numbers, Lieutenant Hyun said grimly. He had been running tactical simulations non-stop. They have thousands of ships. We have maybe 200. If they decide to blockade Earth, we can break through. But we'd take losses. Heavy losses. Ambassador Taeyang sat heavily in his chair. He looked every one of his 70 years. The Council isn't evil, he said slowly. That's what makes this so difficult. They genuinely believe they're doing the right thing. They've had peace for so long they can't imagine any other way. To them, we're the dangerous ones. We're the threat to everything they've built. So what do? Yuna asked. Do we submit? Do we let them scan us and control us and shape us into what they want us to be? No, Minho said firmly. But we don't fight them either. Not unless we have to. He turned to face his team. We have information they don't want anyone to know. Information about what they've done to other species. If we release that information, it will shake the Council to its foundation, maybe break it apart entirely. That could start a war, Hyun warned. Multiple wars. The galaxy could tear itself apart. Or it could start something better, Suji said quietly. A real federation. One based on choice, not force. Where species are free to develop their own way, not forced to follow Council guidelines. Taeyang nodded slowly. It's a risk. A huge risk. But I think it's a risk we have to take, because the alternative is submitting to control. And humanity doesn't do that well. Minho made his decision. We tell them what we found. Tomorrow in the negotiations, we lay it all out. We give them a choice. Reform the Council into a real democracy, or we release the files to every species in the galaxy. They'll see it as blackmail, Yuna said. It is blackmail, Minho agreed. But it's also the truth. And sometimes the truth is the most powerful weapon you have. The next day, the negotiations resumed. The council delegation entered the conference room looking confident. They had proposals prepared, compromises planned. They thought they were making progress. Ambassador Taiyang stood up before anyone else could speak. High Counselor Thexara, representatives of the council, we have been reviewing your history, all of your history, and we have some questions. He activated the main display. Files appeared marked with the highest council security classifications. The Krell, Taiyang began, destroyed for developing artificial intelligence. The Vortan, reduced to primitives for genetic experimentation. The Zal, imprisoned for 3,000 years for being too warlike. The Mavari, the Dolthek, the Kraven. Dozens of species, all suppressed or destroyed for not fitting your idea of what a civilization should be. Thexara's colors drained to pale white. Around her, the other representatives sat frozen in shock. These files were classified, Thexara whispered.
Highest level.
How did you? It doesn't matter how we got them, Minho interrupted. What matters is that we have them. And we want to know, were you planning to do the same thing to us? We maintain order, Representative Kaur said defensively. We keep the peace. Sometimes that requires difficult decisions. You don't keep peace, Yuna said, her voice hard. You enforce submission. There's a difference. Thexara looked old suddenly, ancient and tired. You do not understand. Before the council, the galaxy was chaos. Wars everywhere, species destroying each other. We created something better. We created peace, you created conformity, Taiyang replied. And you call it peace. But real peace isn't possible without freedom, without choice. Your council isn't a democracy. It's a dictatorship with good PR. What do you want? Thexara asked quietly. You have these files. You have this information. What will you do with it? Nino stood up. We want reform. Real reform. Transform the council into a true federation where all species are equal. Where no species can be suppressed or destroyed for being different. Where freedom matters as much as order. And if we refuse, Kaur demanded, then we release these files to every species in the galaxy, Minho said simply. We tell them the truth about what the council really is, and we let them decide what to do about it. That would destroy the council, Thexara said. 12,000 years of peace gone. The galaxy would descend into chaos. Maybe, Taiyang admitted. Or maybe something better would emerge. A real federation, one built on honesty and choice, not control and lies. The council delegation sat in stunned silence. They had come expecting to negotiate with a primitive species. Instead, they faced beings who had outmaneuvered them completely. We need time, Thexara said finally. The week passed slowly. Captain Minho spent his days on the neutral station, waiting for the council's decision. He spent his nights on the Defiant Thunder preparing for what might come next. War, peace, or something in between. On the 7th day, High Counselor Thexara requested a meeting. Minho and Ambassador Taiyang entered the conference room to find only the High Counselor waiting. No other representatives present. Captain, Ambassador, Thexara began, her voice heavy with exhaustion. The council has debated your demands for 6 days. We are divided. Some believe we should accept your terms. Others believe we should reject them and face the consequences. And others believe we should simply eliminate the problem. Minho's hand moved slightly closer to his sidearm. Eliminate the problem? Representative Kaur has proposed a military solution, Thexara said quietly. A first strike against your fleet and your home system, before you can spread your influence further. That would be a mistake, Taiyang said calmly, though his jaw was tight. I agree, Thexara replied. I have spent 600 years maintaining peace. I will not end my service by starting a war. But you must understand, Captain, what you are asking is not simple. You want us to admit we were wrong, that everything we have done for 12,000 years was a lie, that the peace we are so proud of was built on suppression and control. Yes, Minho said simply, because it's the truth. Thexara was silent for a long moment. Then she said something unexpected. I was there, you know, when we imprisoned the Zal. I was a junior counselor then, only a century old. I voted for the blockade. I believed we were doing the right thing. She looked down at her hands. The Zal were fighting each other. Terrible wars. Millions dying. We thought if we contained them, if we forced them to stop fighting, they would learn peace. We thought we were saving them. Instead, you trapped them, Yuna said softly. Yes, Texara agreed. For 3,000 years. And I never questioned it. None of us did. Because we believed our way was the only way. She looked up at Minho. You have shown us something we forgot. That there are many ways to live. Many paths to civilization. And that suppressing those paths, even with good intentions, is still suppression. So what's the Council's answer? Minho asked. There is no answer, Texara replied. The Council is deadlocked. Half want reform, half want to maintain our current system, and Core continues to push for military action, though he lacks the votes to authorize it. She stood up slowly. So I will give you my answer instead. Release the files, Captain. Tell the galaxy the truth. Let every species decide for themselves what the Council should be. If the Council fractures because of it, then perhaps it deserves to fracture. Taeyang looked shocked. High Counselor, you're authorizing this? I am not authorizing anything, Texara said. I am simply telling you that I will not stop you. What you do with that information is your choice, just as it should have always been every species' choice. 4 hours later, Captain Minho sat in his command chair aboard the Defiant Thunder. His senior staff surrounded him. Lieutenant Tsuji had the transmission ready to broadcast. All they needed was his order. This is it, Minho said quietly. Once we send this, there's no taking it back. The galaxy will never be the same. It shouldn't be the same, Commander Yuna replied. Not if the same means species being suppressed for being different. Sir, Lieutenant Hyun said from Tactical, I should inform you that Council vessels are moving into attack positions around our fleet. If we broadcast this, they may see it as an act of war. Let them try, Jinwoo said fiercely. The young lieutenant had grown harder over the past weeks. They all had. Minho took a deep breath. Tsuji, broadcast the files. All of them. Every species in the galaxy needs to see this. Broadcasting now, sir, Tsuji replied, her fingers moving across her console. Transmission is away. Full database upload to all Council communication networks. It's done. For several minutes, nothing happened. The Council ships continued their patrol patterns. The neutral station remained quiet. Space looked just as it had moments before, then everything changed at once, Captain, Tsuji called out. I'm reading massive communication traffic across the Council network. Every species is accessing the files. They're talking to each other. Sir, the network is going crazy. On the main screen, feeds from across the galaxy began appearing. News broadcasts, government channels, public forums, all of them showing the same thing, the hidden history of the Galactic Council. Minho watched species after species react to the truth. Shock, anger, disbelief, fear. Some called the files fake. Others demanded answers from their council representatives. A few went silent, processing what they had learned. Then the Zal acted. Captain, reading massive energy signatures from the Zal quarantine zone, Hyun reported. Sir, they're launching ships. Hundreds of them. Ships? Yuna asked. But they've been blockaded for 3,000 years. Where did they get ships? The answer appeared on screen. Zal vessels, built in secret over centuries, poured out of hidden asteroid bases and underground shipyards. They had been waiting for this moment, preparing for a chance at freedom they thought might never come. The Council blockade force at the Exal system was 60 ships strong. The Zal fleet numbered 200, and thanks to human technology broadcast along with the historical files, every Exal ship had been retrofitted with updated weapons and shields. The Council force retreated without firing a shot. The Exal are broadcasting, Tsuji said, pulling up their message. A Zal commander appeared on screen, tall and fierce-looking with scales that gleamed like metal. To the Galactic Council, the Zal commander declared, we are free. After 3,000 years of imprisonment, we claim our right to the stars. Any attempt to reimpose the blockade will be met with force. We thank the humans for showing us that the Council is not invincible, and we invite any other species tired of Council control to join us in creating something new. Within hours, other species began to move. The Meveri, suppressed for their industrial practices, declared independence. The Dolthek, monitored for their aggressive culture, refused Council oversight. The Kraven, restricted in their genetic research, reopened their laboratories. It wasn't a rebellion. It was an awakening. Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command. Yuna reported. They're ordering us to return home immediately. Sir, Council forces are mobilizing. They're talking about a fleet action. Before Minho could respond, Suji interrupted. Captain, incoming transmission from the Council. It's High Counselor Thexara. The ancient alien appeared on screen. She looked exhausted but somehow lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted. Captain Minho, she said, what you have done today will echo through history. The Council is in chaos. Representatives are resigning. Member species are demanding reform or threatening to leave. Representative Corps is calling for war against humanity and all species that support you. Will there be war? Minho asked. Not if I can prevent it, Thexara replied. I am calling an emergency constitutional convention. The first in 12,000 years. We will rebuild the Council from the ground up. As a true federation of equals, not a hierarchy of control. And Captain, I am inviting humanity to participate, not as subjects but as founders of this new order. Along with the Zal, Minho said. It wasn't a question. Along with the Zal, Thexara agreed. And the Vortan, who we are already sending aid to rebuild. And any species that wants a voice in this new galaxy. She paused. You have destroyed what took us 12,000 years to build. But perhaps you have also given us the chance to build something better, something true. I hope you are right, Captain. I hope freedom is worth the chaos it brings. The transmission ended. Lieutenant Jinwoo broke the silence. Sir, did we just accidentally start a revolution? Not accidentally, Taeyang said, entering the bridge. The old diplomat had been listening from the doorway. We started it very deliberately. The question is, can we help them finish it? Minho stood up. Helm, set course for Earth. We need to report in person. And then we're coming back with a full diplomatic team. If we're helping to rebuild the galactic government, we're going to do it right. As the Defiant Thunder prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, Minho looked out at the stars one last time. Somewhere out there, the Zal were flying free for the first time in 3,000 years. Somewhere out there, species were making choices they had never been allowed to make before. You know, Yuna said quietly, standing beside him. We came out here to make first contact, to join the galactic community. Instead, we broke it. No, Minho replied. We freed it. There's a difference. The ship jumped and the stars stretched into lines of light. Behind them, they left a galaxy in chaos, but also a galaxy with hope. Hope that freedom mattered. Hope that different paths could coexist. Hope that peace built on truth was better than peace built on lies. It would take years to build the new Federation. Maybe decades. There would be conflicts and setbacks and struggles. But for the first time in 12,000 years, every species would have a choice in how it was built. And humanity, the species that had accidentally hacked an alien ship and discovered a galaxy of secrets, would be there to help. Not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as equals, working alongside everyone else to create something better. The galaxy had tried to scan a human warship. 6 months had passed since the day humanity broadcast the Council's secrets to the galaxy. 6 months of chaos, confusion, and slow, painful change. Captain Minho stood in the grand assembly hall of what had once been called the Galactic Council Chamber, and was now simply called the Federation Hall. The building looked the same. The carved asteroid walls still gleamed with inner light. The seats still curved in elegant rows around the central speaking floor. But everything else had changed. Where once 73 species had sent single representatives to speak with one voice, now over 100 species sent delegations that argued loudly and passionately. The old council had been orderly and quiet. This new federation was messy and loud. Minho thought it was beautiful. Captain Minho, a deep voice called out. Minho turned to see Korath approaching. The Zal commander was massive, nearly 7 feet tall, with scales that caught the light like mirrors. He had become the de facto leader of the Zal people after their liberation. Commander Korath, Minho greeted him warmly. They clasped hands in the human gesture that had become popular across the galaxy. 3,000 years, Korath said, his voice full of emotion. For 3,000 years, my people stared at the stars from behind the Council's blockade. We built ships in secret. We planned and hoped and despaired. And then you came. One message. One broadcast. And we were free. You freed yourselves, Minho replied. We just gave you the information you needed. You gave us more than information, Korath said. You gave us hope. And you gave us technology. The weapon systems your engineers helped us install. They worked perfectly. The Council fleet didn't stand a chance. Minho smiled slightly. I heard the blockade ships retreated without a fight. Smart of them, Korath said with a grin that showed many teeth. Though I think some of my people were disappointed. We had 3,000 years of anger to work out. They walked together into the assembly hall. The Constitutional Convention was about to begin its final session. Months of debate and argument had finally produced a document everyone could agree on. Mostly agree on. There were still arguments happening in the corners. Commander Yuna waved to Minho from across the hall. She had been working with a dozen species on security protocols for the new Federation. Beside her stood Ambassador Taiyang, who had aged visibly over the past 6 months but seemed more alive than Minho had ever seen him. Captain, Taiyang said as Minho approached, the vote is today. After 6 months, we'll finally know if this new Federation will actually work. It will work, said a voice from behind them. High Counselor Thexara, though she no longer used that title, approached slowly. She looked different than she had 6 months ago. Lighter somehow. Less burdened. Representative Thexara. Taeyang greeted her with a respectful bow. Just Thexara now. The ancient alien said, I am not a High Counselor anymore. I am simply one voice among many. As it should be. Do you regret it? Minho asked quietly. Giving up your power? Helping us tear down what you spent 600 years building? Thexara considered the question carefully. I regret what we did to the Zal, to the Vortan, to the Krell and all the others. I regret the centuries of control we called peace. But giving up power? No, power kept responsibly is service. Power kept selfishly is tyranny. We had become tyrants without even realizing it. She looked around the noisy, chaotic assembly hall. This is better. Messy, yes. Frustrating, certainly, but honest, real. For the first time in 12,000 years, every species has a true voice. The assembly bell rang, calling everyone to order. Delegates hurried to their seats. Minho took his place in the human delegation section between Yuna and Taiyang. Around them sat representatives from Earth's colony worlds, each with their own concerns and perspectives. The session began with Representative Kor of the Dravik speaking. The warrior species had resisted change more than any other, but even Kor had been forced to accept reality. For 12,000 years, Kor said, his voice gruff, the Dravik served as the Council's military. We kept order. We enforced peace. We believed we were doing right. He paused. We were wrong. Not about keeping peace, but about how we kept it. We used force to maintain control, not to protect freedom. He looked directly at Minho. The humans showed us that strength without freedom is just oppression with armor. The Draviks vote yes on the new Federation Charter. And we pledge our fleets to defend the freedom of all member species, not to enforce compliance. One by one, species stood and cast their votes. The Zal voted yes, declaring that 3,000 years of imprisonment had taught them the value of freedom. The Vortan voted yes, grateful for the aid that was helping them rebuild. The Mivari, the Dolthek, the Craven, all the species that had been suppressed or controlled, voted yes. Even the old council species, the ones who had held power for millennia, voted yes. Some with enthusiasm, some with reluctance, but all of them voted yes. When the final tally appeared on the display screens, the hall erupted in cheers. The new Federation Charter had passed unanimously. For the first time in galactic history, a government had been built not through conquest or control, but through choice. That evening, Minho stood on an observation deck overlooking the asteroid field where the Federation Hall floated. Commander Yuna found him there, 2 drinks in her hands. Thought you might want this, she said, handing him one. We're celebrating. The whole delegation is getting drunk with the Zal. Turns out they make an alcohol that can knock out a human in 2 drinks. Minho accepted the drink but didn't sip it yet. Do you think it will last? This new Federation? No idea, Yuna said honestly. Could fall apart in a year. Could last longer than the old council did, but at least it's built on something real. Freedom and chaos, Minho said with a slight smile. The human way, Yuna agreed. She raised her glass. To accidentally starting a revolution? To finishing it, Minho corrected, raising his own glass. They drank. Lieutenant Suji appeared on the observation deck, slightly out of breath. Captain! You need to see this. It's all over the Federation networks. She pulled up a holographic display. News broadcasts from dozens of species filled the air, all showing the same story. The Vorton had just launched their first new spacecraft in 400 years. The ship was primitive by galactic standards but represented something profound, a species reclaiming its right to the stars. "They're calling it the Freedom," Suji said, her eyes bright with emotion. "The Vortan say it's named in honor of humanity. They say we showed them that being different isn't wrong. It's just different." Minho watched the Vortan ship climb into space on trails of fire. Around the galaxy, species were relearning how to be themselves. The Zal were exploring space they hadn't seen in 3 millennia. The Meveri were building new industries. The Dolthek were celebrating their culture instead of hiding it. "Captain," said Lieutenant Jinwoo, joining them on the observation deck. "Earth Command is asking when we're coming home." "It's been 6 months. Soon," Minho said. "But not yet. There's still work to do here." Over the next weeks, Minho and his crew helped establish the new Federation's defense protocols. Not a military to enforce compliance, but a true defensive force to protect freedom. The Zal contributed their warriors. The Draviks contributed their experience. Humanity contributed their technology and their hard-learned lessons about building weapons that defended instead of conquering. They also worked on something more important: education. Species that had been kept from certain technologies were now learning them. Species that had been isolated were now meeting each other. The galaxy was opening up in ways it hadn't in thousands of years. One morning, Ambassador Taeyang called Minho to a private meeting. The old diplomat looked tired but satisfied. "Captain, I'm returning to Earth," Taeyang said. "My successor is arriving tomorrow. A younger woman, better suited for this new galaxy we've helped create." "You deserve rest," Minho said. "You've done incredible work here." "We all have," Taeyang replied. "But I wanted to tell you something before I leave. When we first detected that alien ship, when you went out to make first contact, we hoped for friendship. We prepared for war. We never imagined we'd start a revolution." "Neither did I," Minho admitted. "But that's the thing about humans," Taeyang continued. "We don't accept things as they are. We see injustice and we can't let it stand. We see control and we demand freedom. It makes us difficult, it makes us dangerous, but it also makes us necessary." He stood and extended his hand. "The galaxy needed us, Captain. Not because we have better weapons or better ships, but because we remember what it's like to fight for freedom. And we're willing to help others fight for it too." 3 days later, the Defiant Thunder prepared to return to Earth. The crew gathered on the bridge one last time, looking out at the Federation Hall and the hundreds of ships from hundreds of species that surrounded it. "Helm," Minho ordered. "Take us home." "Aye, Captain," replied the helmsman. Course plotted for Earth. As the ship began to turn, a communication came through. It was Korath broadcasting from the Zal flagship. "Captain Minho," the Zal commander said, "my people wish to say goodbye. You came to the stars seeking friendship. You gave us something better. You gave us freedom. We will never forget," Minho smiled. "Commander Korath, remember what I told you. You freed yourselves. We just gave you the tools.